Oh, here we go. That was the weirdest entry. Hello, welcome to Insurrection with Brenton Lengel. I am your host, Brenton Lengel. For those of you who don't know me, I am a playwright for 7 plays produced in New York City. I am a Ringo-nominated comic creator, author of Snow White Zombie Apocalypse, and I am an anarchist and former activist with Occupy Wall Street and the very last member of the Youth International Party. At least as far as I know. If anybody's been inducted after me, probably not going to happen. But this is my program, Insurrection with Brenton Lengel. Used to be carried on the radio, now carried on YouTube. And I'm here. We just finished. I've been speaking with Bobby B. We have both not streamed in a while because of the holidays and a number of other things, but we both kind of felt compelled to stream to talk about what's going on in our country, which is the riot in DC and the attack on Congress by a legion of moronic fascists who were put up to it by the idiot game show host President Donald Trump, who currently has, is probably mid stages of dementia and can't simply accept his defeat. Bobby, I'm super angry about this whole thing, but why don't you tell me like your impression of this, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so a little background on me. I lived in Washington D.C. for 2 years, and that city, New York, is the city in my heart, but D.C. has a special place there too, because if you've never been to D.C. to really see it instead of just protesting, which I suspect might have been your experience. But
no, I grew up in Northern Virginia.
Oh, okay,
yeah. No, we would take trips to DC all the time. I was in a suburb from DC. One of the reasons I hate politicians actually is one of the kids who was one of my bullies in middle school was the son of a senator.
Oh God,
I'm so sorry. Oh, he was such a prick.
But I bet. But it's now that I'm gonna actually say something good about the city. But it's a beautiful city. It has wide roads, it has great sidewalks, public areas. It used to be a little rough, but it's Disneyland now. The people there are lovely and accommodating. It was my city for 2 years. I've been loaded in every speakeasy in the city. I wandered in streets, had a chat with Lincoln when I was really loaded on gin one time. And
this is interesting because when I was hallucinating, I always wanted to have a chat with Abraham Lincoln, but it just never happened.
He seems like he'd be a cool guy to do it with. But the last year has broken my heart for that city, because when I had to watch the RNC, I saw that the city on a Saturday night that should have been full of people enjoying themselves and having fun with the nightlife there was empty because a failed game show host president had utterly been unable to respond to a pandemic because of a failed right-wing ideology. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was the worst it was going to get. I really did. And then yesterday was yesterday, right?
It was yesterday.
It feels like it was so long ago because of the news cycle, but yesterday we had to watch these moronic fascists, as you describe them, I think correctly, storm the Capitol building. And I'm a war veteran. I love this country for all of its faults. There are a lot of faults, but I do love it. I wouldn't have done what I did for any other country. And that building has only been breached twice in our history. One was in the War of 1812. I tweeted about this when I was still really hot about it. One was in the War of 1812 when it was burnt by the British, who were an imperial power trying to exert will on us. And never again since then had it been breached, not even by the Civil War, not by any of the conflicts that we fought, but it took the fans of a reality show host famous for lying to breach the hall of our democracy. And that infuriated me like nothing's infuriated me before. And I know this movement it's a failed movement. It's a movement full of people who are broken and exploited by their leaders to fight against their best interests and the best interests of everybody. But just to see that was just the height of infamy. The news, which is famously in this country, both sides was doing nothing but talking about the infamy of this, how we'll always remember this, how this will be a stain on our history. Even Mitch McConnell, who is an awful person,
horrible fascist turtle,
got up and said this was too fascist for him, basically. And when you go too fascist for Mr. McConnell, then you're really in trouble. Yeah. And I don't think that we can tolerate this anymore in our society. I think that for my whole life, probably much longer than that, we have coddled the failed right-wing movement in this country. You have experience protesting, and I'm sure you can testify to this, but if that had been a left-wing protest, there would have been machine guns and flashbangs and gas.
They would have had snipers on the roof, because they did. They would have had plans to assassinate the leaders, because they did, like with Occupy. So what I'll let you guys, first off, it's weird to see Congress breached. And normally, and to be breached by protesters. And protesters tend to all have very similar chants at times. So, Occupy's one of the famous chants we did at Occupy was "Whose streets are streets?" Yeah. And it's been weird over the past couple of months, because we're really since the end of the election, where you see the freaking Proud Boys saying "Whose streets are streets?" I instinctively want to side with a protester almost every time, because I know what they're going through. I've been there. I've been at the center of those movements. I have stared down a line of riot cops. I've been attacked by riot cops and kneed in the spine and thrown into a motorcycle. I've been arrested. I felt, we're going to talk about zip ties soon. I felt those zip ties close around my hands. I had one hand turn purple because they were too, they were too tight. But to see it coming from Donald freaking Trump and Rudy Giuliani, where Giuliani's sitting there talking about how they're going to do a trial by combat. Yeah. First off, I would love a trial by combat. I will personally fight Rudy Giuliani.
You have to get past me, man. He was my mayor.
We can, yeah. Oh, you were in the city when Rudy was mayor?
Yeah.
Jesus. Put me in the ring with Rudy Giuliani. Put me in the ring with Donald Trump. We'll do that trial by combat right there. I volunteer. They can't pick like the mountain to go fight for them. By the way.
I want to fight the dude in the Native American headdress.
Oh, that's the Q shaman.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, like protests, and we can actually talk about this. So protests oftentimes will attract people that want to they just want to dress up and have a fun time. They don't go to Comic-Con. They're not at Dragon Con, they're not LARPing in the park. So they're trying to LARP in real life. Yep. And there was that guy, the Spartan for a while, the MAGA Spartan, who quit doing it when he realized they were a bunch of fascists. And then there's this Q shaman guy. Now, for those of you if you don't know what QAnon is, because there's
for you.
Yeah, good for you. I'm sorry to introduce it to your reality. QAnon is a conspiracy theory based around a person posting to the website 8chan who claims to have Q clearance in the military, which is the highest possible security clearance you can have.
It isn't.
Definitely not.
Wait, Q clearance does exist.
Mm-hmm.
Q clearance is a thing for the Department of Energy to know about where the nukes are. And the claims that the gentleman is making that Brenton's going to elucidate for you guys, if they were true, which they manifestly aren't, that any rational person will realize they aren't, that somebody with Q clearance wouldn't have access to them. And somebody with any sort of clearance wouldn't actually get onto the ClearNet to talk about them without being assassinated.
Yeah. So whoever this person is, and it's probably Jim Watkins, or the owner of 8chan, or it's multiple people, and Jim Watkins is like the Pope of it. Like this account has been putting forth a number of conspiracy theories, and a community has risen up around it. The broad themes, it started out with the Mueller investigation, and QAnon believed that Mueller was actually a white hat working for Donald Trump, using the Mueller investigation to track down and destroy this elite pedophile cabal that controls every country in the world, and is run by Hillary Clinton and John Podesta. And the Queen. So, they believe stuff like when the Navy, when the aircraft carrier docked in New York to provide additional beds for people suffering from COVID, that was actually secretly brought there because they had attacked a secret underground site housing mole children, which were children that this pedophile cabal had raised in the dark, and were used to harvest adrenochrome, like the freaking Countess whatever the heck it is. The one who
Bathory, you were right.
Bathory, yeah. I almost said Baltharoy, but yeah, Countess Bathory. The harvesting of adrenochrome and the having sex with these mole children kind of thing. This is the insanity that guy in the shaman outfit believes.
They also
person in that movement.
They also believe that JFK Jr. is still alive and he's going to come out and like help Trump somehow.
And they have this thing coming called the Storm, and their big thing is trust the plan, because Donald Trump is kind of a messianic figure to them. And they believe that there is a plan, and there's coming the day of the storm where all of this will be revealed. It will be revealed that, John McCain was sentenced to death long before he died, and the person that died was actually a clone of John McCain. They believe it's so big, it's almost entirely difficult. But essentially, their version of the Storm is like the white nationalist day of the rope.
I was about to say that.
Yeah, it's the day that all of their enemies will, that this pedophile conspiracy will be made clear, and that all of their enemies will be jailed and killed, and all of their grandchildren will stop saying that they're crazy, and their families will take them back, and they will be lauded for being part of this batshit insane movement. That is QAnon. And if you want to look more into it, I highly recommend, there's a great podcast called QAnon Anonymous, which chronicles them and also is hilarious. And one of the guys in it does some creative writing based upon their theories. For instance, the mole children, he did one on that where like Sebastian Gorka and the mole children, it was kind of like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
Oh no.
So yeah, that's what QAnon is. That's what they believe. And I can tell, Robert, that you're chomping at the bit. So let's jump in here.
Well, we think that this is a new phenomenon because it's more exposed because of the internet. It's not a new phenomenon. This is something that has been intrinsic to the right-wing movement in this country for decades, if not like a century. Like, we had the John Birch Society in the 50s thinking that Eisenhower was a secret KGB agent. We had insane like JFK assassination conspiracy theories. Maybe that one's true. I don't know. We had the people who think that like the Roswell aliens are controlling the government. We have a right-wing movement that's divorced itself from reality to the point where this is the mainstream of their party. This didn't happen overnight. This happened over decades, and we're seeing the consequences of coddling this failed movement for so well. Yeah, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, that's a great example. The famous fascist Henry Ford, yeah, he was a fascist despite what your middle school history book might have told you, propagated pro-Holocaust basically literature to the point where I was handed a copy of that by someone I used to respect, an older gentleman who still believed it in like 2005. Yeah, so this is endemic and it has gone on for a long time, and we have coddled this movement. We've pretended that they're reasonable people. We have pretended that they have valid criticisms of what's going on. We have invited them to debates and treated them like they have an equal perspective. We have constantly treated them with kid gloves when it comes to law enforcement. We do have a state right now. We don't live in a stateless society yet. I'd like to. It'd be cool, really great if we lived in fully like Star Trek space communism, but we don't. And if we have a social contract that we're going to enforce, we have to stop coddling this movement. I keep finding myself saying this over and over again, and it might be anger, but there can be no mercy for these traitors when it comes to our legal system. If we don't have mass charges from this, we have the Buffalo dude that we were talking about a minute ago taking pictures of himself in the vice president's seat in the Senate. We have psychopaths breaking into the Speaker of the House's office, stealing letters off her desk.
By the way, the two of the people that did break into Nancy Pelosi's office, and I despise Nancy Pelosi, but it was Baked Alaska and Nick Fuentes, both of which are literally like call themselves Nazis.
The fact that I have to know who those two are and that they haven't been driven out of the public square infuriates me also.
Yeah. And again, you're right. People are coddling them. And like what I will say is that I tend to be against punishment in general. I'm for prison abolition and to replace it with a much better system. However, I've also functioned as an authority figure. And what's very important, both, as a parent, but also as like a coach and a teacher and a guide, you have to have consequences when someone acts out. Because if you don't, they just keep doing it. This is how, and it gets more and more extreme. They continue to test the boundaries and test their power. And if we do not see very serious legal consequences levied against these people, it's just going to get worse. And they will never respect the rule of law. They will never respect us until we put them in our place. The same thing with freaking schoolyard bullies.
Yeah.
You do not defeat a bully by telling a teacher. You do not defeat a bully by ignoring them. You defeat a bully by bloodying their nose because they are cowards. Yeah. And if you bloody their nose, they will back off. I guarantee you, because that's what I did.
I've done the same thing, and you're right. And the fact that we haven't done that as a society, we're reaping the consequences of that. We see it on our cable news. We're pretending like these guys have equal perspective. Like we're pretending like Tucker Carlson is some intellectual. We're pretending like Rush Limbaugh has something to say. We're pretending like Donald Trump was presidential at any point during the last 4 years. We're pretending like Mitch McConnell has the best interest of the citizens at heart. We have to stop the pretense and stop coddling this movement, because we're seeing the same thing that we saw in Weimar Germany in the 1920s. Literally, this is our Weimar moment. We have a conservative movement that thinks that it can use a nascent fascist movement as foot soldiers to implement their insane, unscientific, pie-in-the-sky, fanfic capitalist agenda. Yeah. And we're seeing what's happened in Weimar Germany. The fascists eat that conservative movement, use the bones of its power to impose fascism, and you wind up in a very, very, very bad situation. And we thankfully have strong enough and established enough democratic norms in this country that we voted the fascist president out, that the Democrats...
And it seems to actually be sticking.
Just for now, thank God. The Democratic Party has taken the Senate and the House for all of their faults, and I don't think they're going to do that great, but they've kind of taken the power away from that movement. And I think that provided the reporting from the mainstream media keeps going the way it's going, provided that the people of this country don't lose the utter outrage of this infamous situation, that this could be a situation where we could break that movement's power, at least temporarily. Yeah.
Well, no, you're totally right. And the thing is you're right. This is not a new thing. We were just talking about George Orwell and Homage to Catalonia. Yeah. Francisco Franco was QAnon. He believed in all of these insane Masonic conspiracy theories. And again, this is a guy who reportedly slept with the severed hand of Saint Teresa de Avila under his pillow. He carried it around. I don't know if he really slept with it under his pillow, but he carried it around like it was a freaking nuclear football. These people are occultists. They're insane. And the fact of them, and when I say insane, I'm not entirely neurotypical, but I'm saying they're like insane in a way that they are removed from society and removed from reality in a way that makes them dangerous.
Yeah. And we've talked about the process by which that happened in a previous show that we did. Mm-hmm. And you can chart it. You can chart the capitalization of that media that drives people to this alternate reality that these people live in. And not to keep bringing up Weimar Germany, but one of the things that the Nazis did do was to completely isolate their people ideologically. They controlled the newspapers, they controlled the radios, they controlled the cinemas, and I don't think they really had televisions in Germany, but to the extent that they did, they would control what was aired on them, so that people couldn't form new thoughts. And that's what we're doing with the capitalized culture industry, where we have these tiny little bubbles of like Fox News, OANN, Newsmax, the Epoch Times, which is an insane newspaper.
The guy from the Epoch, I get those ads all the damn time, and that guy has one of the most punchable faces I've ever seen in Minecraft.
He does.
Punch that guy. But like, he's got one of those faces. Like there's a German word for it. It's like Beckpfeffer, Schweissen, or something.
They've got a word for everything.
Yeah, that Epoch Times guy is just like sitting there, and he's like, "Hey, do you know what I'm reading in the Epoch Times?" And I'm like, "I don't care what you're reading in the Epoch Times. Get out."
And then you have the Moody newspaper too. No offense to any members of the Unification Church, but
the offense for me. You joined a cult.
Okay. Yeah, but the Washington Times, I believe, is the Moody newspaper, and they've built this movement of people that they think are going to be their foot soldiers for basically implementing like brutal, hardcore neoliberal capitalism, but they're being eaten alive by the fascist monster that they've created.
Yeah.
And we just saw that fascist monster rear its ugly head, not for the first time, but again, because we had Charlottesville. What was that, 2017, 2018?
2017, yeah. And 2017. And again, somebody died. And that was Heather Heyer.
Yeah. And there was only like a few arrests from that, because we coddle this far-right movement.
Because, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like that the government is gun shy because of like Waco. Like I thought maybe like Waco and Ruby Ridge, like that might have been why they didn't go after, for instance, the Bundys as hard as they really should have. I don't know if it's just because like people are just really that racist and can't seem to get it into their head that white people can do crimes. Like, I don't know if it's because Donald Trump is rich. I think that's probably the biggest part, because in America, we just give infinite rope to rich people, and that he's the president in the highest office in the land. So people just defer to that. But like one way or another, like these people have gone way too far.
They have. And I don't want anyone to die, and I don't want violence to happen. Mm-hmm. But if this was Afghanistan, and Taliban were trying to storm a government building, we would call it an airstrike. Yeah. If this were like in a more authoritarian country, like if somebody tried to storm the Kremlin in Russia, there would be awful retaliation. And the thing that the left in this country is calling for isn't any of that violence. It's legal consequences from the law that we all agree to live under. One of the great things about the American Revolution, and the American Revolution happened in the 1770s, 1780s, and it's now the 2020s. So what was great back then is just kind of, baseline now. But one of the great things that came out of our revolution was building a society based on mutual consent and mutual agreement to live under a social contract. And this kind of thing, it completely violates the basic tenets of our society. If it was a left-wing group trying to storm Congress to put Bernie Sanders in charge of the presidency, I would be saying this same thing right now. Yeah. I don't think Bernie Sanders would accept that. But
if it was a left-wing group that had attempted this, there'd just be a blood stain. I'm sorry.
You're not wrong.
I went and I did Occupy Congress with, and I saw the police presence that they had when we were there. Now we weren't, we were maybe 1,500 people at Occupy Congress. It wasn't like anything like, N17 when there were 50,000 people in New York City. But still, the police presence, we were completely outnumbered by the police at all times, and they followed us at all times. The police at no point outnumbered the MAGA crowd. And not only that, but like apparently the DC mayor had asked for the National Guard ahead of time, figuring that something like this would happen. And well, the National Guard are under the command of Donald Trump, and he refused it. And so, you've got people coming up, like I shared this on my, I shared this image on my Twitter, and people can find it, but I'm also going to share it on my phone here for people to see it. There's this individual here. I don't know if you can tell, but this white area right here, he's carrying zip ties. Like these are the same zip ties that I like, not the exact same ones, but the same design of zip ties that were used to tie my hands like at Occupy by police officers. And this is not a police officer. This is a guy breaking in to freaking Congress with the intent of using these zip ties on, I would assume, Congress people. And, there may be like, anarchists in my comments here are like, oh, that's great. Get the corrupt politicians. Yeah, but he's going to lock them up on behalf of another corrupt politician, perhaps the single most corrupt politician in all of American history.
Like
pull your head out of your asses here, people.
I used to think that there was, excuse me, I'm smoking. I used to think that there was an argument for saying some of the Gilded Age guys were more corrupt, but I don't think so anymore at this point.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Now, here's the thing. There was somebody in the comments that said they don't care who wins the election. They want fair elections. This was a fair election, as fair as you can get in a place that has the electoral college.
You know what? I'm gonna say something that might anger that gentleman or lady. This election, if anything, was stacked in favor of Donald Trump.
Everything was stacked in favor of Donald.
Yeah, he was the incumbent. There were Republican legislatures in the majority of states doing voter suppression. Decades of voter suppression in the South was overcome in Georgia. Gerrymandering has stacked Congress massively in the Republicans' favor, and he's such a failure that he lost the House in 2018, and he's now lost the Senate in 2020. This is a failed, unpopular movement. Donald Trump never broke like 51% approval rating, I don't think, in 4 years, and we're surprised that he lost in a historic landslide, like 9 million popular votes, 302 to what? I can't do the math right now. 302 to whatever it was in electoral votes. This is an unpopular movement with an unpopular fascist leader that lost a election that was, if anything, stacked in his favor. And now they are so against having a plural society based on consent that they have rejected the results of that election, and they want to impose their will rather than having a democratic consensus on this country. And we can't allow that to happen. We can't allow that to happen for ourselves, because I certainly don't want to live under a fascist state that has a minority rule government. I don't think you do either. No. We can't allow that for our children, your real children, and my hypothetical children, if a woman can ever stand me. We can't allow that for the world, because this is the world's largest economy. This is the world's most powerful military, and there are nuclear weapons that could end the world that we do not want in the hands of an unelected fascist movement.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's not just that. Like, the Republicans have been ruling as a minority party for pretty much as long as any of us have been alive. At least, us minorities, millennials.
I'm very white, for the record.
Yeah, but like, they've been ruling as a minority party, and like, not only have they been ruling as a minority party, but like, really, if we followed any kind of like, he got third place in 2016. He received 3 million fewer votes than Hillary Clinton, and both of them received fewer votes than the overwhelming winner of 2016, which was no one. Like, in a sane world where you've got people so unpopular that more than half of the people who could vote choose not to vote, that is a vote of no confidence. Like, that's what they are saying with it. It's not how it's taken. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is we should have gone without a president for the last 4 years until we can get someone that people actually like.
Right.
So, he's terrible. Now, there was also something that I did want to point out, like, where they said, how about Antifa burning cities?
Oh, Jesus.
So first off, Antifa didn't burn cities. You're confusing Antifa, the anti-fascist street protesting movement, with black bloc tactics. Yeah. When people put on masks and fly like, the anarchist flags and stuff, and they dress in all black and they go and they do minor property destruction or occasionally burn something, that is black bloc. That is not Antifa. Antifa uses black bloc tactics sometimes when they confront fascists in the street. And this is because fascists will attack their families.
And you know what? No city has been burned to the ground. Like,
absolutely not.
I'm not aware of that, and I follow the news pretty close. There's been some property damage, which is not ideal, but
Well, and also like with the property damage, you don't know who's doing that.
Yeah.
I personally saw infiltrators in Occupy Wall Street attacking people. I saw them engaging in illegal activity and trying to get other people to engage in illegal activity. Now, we had one guy trying to get people to jump the turnstiles during N17. After there'd just been a major talk about why people couldn't jump the turnstiles because it would get them arrested, because New York, because of Giuliani, has ridiculous crackdowns on tiny little quality of life crimes like that. And you confront the guy and say, okay, asshole, you jumped the turnstiles. And of course, he demurred. Why did he demur? Because he was a freaking infiltrator. And I saw the exact same person later at the Million Hoodies March after Trayvon Martin was killed. And I watched him pull an egg out of his pocket and throw it at the back of somebody's head, trying to get them to start a fight with somebody around them. So yes, these infiltrators exist. And easily the people who burned those things, they could have been black protesters, but they could have been Republicans hiding in there. There could have been freaking police trying to create a reason to go in after these people.
Even if they weren't, assuming the worst case scenario, nothing that has happened in the George Floyd protests or the protests since Donald Trump has been elected comes even like within the same state as trying to storm the Congress to impose an unelected candidate into the presidency.
That's horrifying. Yeah. And again, you've got that guy running in there. I just showed you, and you can look up the picture with those freaking zip ties. Yeah. Like that man intended on taking hostages.
Yes, he did. And somehow we haven't arrested that guy immediately. That's why I'm saying there can be no mercy for these people. They have to be subjected to the full force of the law, such as we have it.
Because if they're not, they're just going to do it again.
They are going to. They already did it in Charlottesville, and this is an escalation of that. They've already done it. They did it in Oklahoma City, and we clamped down on the militia movement after that, and we haven't seen like terrorism on that scale since then, until now, when the resurgent militia movement is marching with Nazis in the street and trying to storm the Capitol building. These people, we have the most powerful defense sector in the world. We have some of the most developed police departments in the world. We have famously overfunded police departments. Yeah. That's what we've been protesting for like the last year. And we've allowed these crackpots, losers, and weirdos, and no offense to weirdos, I'm probably a weirdo, but to storm what like we've been calling the citadel of democracy. And that to the degree to which that's unacceptable can't be overstated. Washington, D.C., this is going to be a stain on the soul of that city for decades. This is going to be a wound in our history. When the history books are written about this era, I hope that my grandchildren are going to be like, why wasn't he removed from office immediately? Why weren't the senators who stoked this fire expelled from the Senate? Why didn't the social media companies act as responsible public citizens and remove these insane social media posts sooner? I mean, Donald Trump's social media has inspired, like, what is it, like a 200% rise in hate crimes, like over the last 4 years, something like that. It's an insane rise of hate crimes over the last few years. And it's only just now been like suspended, his Twitter. His Facebook was only just now taken down, which kind of shows us that we can't rely on the capitalist culture industry to do anything other than what's profitable up until like the last minute.
Absolutely. I wanted to bring this up here. By the way, 6 Capitol rioters were Republican lawmakers. I know one of them was. I didn't know about the other 5.
Yeah, I knew about the West Virginia guy who live streamed it and said, like, I forget what his name is, but he's like, Dewey Crows in the Capitol building. Like, he admitted to a felony. He needs to be expelled from his position and arrested immediately and brought up on charges. Like, there can't. If
we talked about QAnon earlier. Some of the people that have been elected as Republican lawmakers are QAnon people. They do believe in the crazy pedophile conspiracy theory with Donald Trump as their savior. I don't understand how anyone on the freaking planet can think Donald Trump, of all people, is their savior. Like, for God's sake, the man doesn't exercise because he thinks the body has limited energy like a battery and you'll die sooner if you exercise. He only eats fast food most of the time because he's paranoid about being poisoned. He's like he's got like 6 beach balls in his body, and he can't walk more than 15 yards without using like one of those freaking golf carts. Don't tell me that that's your leader.
Well, this is what our culture has primed these people to see as the savior, because we've venerated the businessman. People watch Wall Street and they think Gordon Gekko's the hero at this point. We have prosperity gospel preachers that are the most popular religious figures in the country. So when you get this guy, he's a billionaire, so he must be good because my preacher told me so. He's a billionaire, so he must be super smart because we've got this Horatio Alger myth that you have to be super smart and hardworking to be rich. So yeah, when they see this guy, they think that they've been primed to see him as kind of the savior figure. They've been primed to see bravery where no bravery exists. Most people, their reference for like toughness is action movies where the guy is uncompromising and strong and takes it to the villain, instead of like actual toughness. Like if you talk to an actual tough guy, they don't talk like Donald Trump.
No.
But like he talks like the media product of the tough guy. So these people who get all of their culture from the culture industry, they think that this is a tough guy. They think that America is the action hero of the world in the way. So we see his foreign policy acting tough and making us weaker at this point than we've been at any point since 1945. And speaking of that, if you care about America in any sort of way, or if you care about like maintaining like order in the world in any sort of way, our allies and our partner nations across the world saw this. Like this isn't something that just aired on American television. This is something that other countries in the world are going to see and realize that we are not a stable liberal democracy anymore. This is other countries are not going to want to make long-term deals with us because our political situation has become so unstable.
Look what happened to the freaking Kurds.
Yeah.
Again, I followed the Kurds very closely because, like, honestly, in a lot of ways, I saw it as the next Catalonia. When they won in Rojava, it was freaking amazing. And, their democratic confederalism, people will say, well, it's not anarchism, it's democratic. It's close enough. It's Maury Bookchin. Like, yeah, Maury Bookchin, he officially stopped being an anarcho-communist, but that was because he basically pulled the gothiest goth move and said all you anarcho-communists are just front.
well, it's a lot better than what they had before, and sometimes you get incremental progress.
Yeah, but my point is that he betrayed them for absolutely no reason. He gained nothing. It was literally like, and he wouldn't have lost anything. All he had to do was keep the American troops embedded with them, and Erdogan couldn't do anything without incurring the wrath of the United States
and NATO.
Yeah, and NATO, and then like Erdogan's like, hey, could you pull the troops back? And Trump's like, yeah, sure, I'll do that, and boom, and. They weren't defeated. They're still there. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is that who's going to trust us again?
Nobody. And even if we elect the stable Joe Biden, candidate, which we did, in 4 years we could elect Trump again. We could elect Tom Cotton. That weakens us. And it weakens world order. It's going to weaken our economy. Because international trade deals are also subject to the next psychopathic game show host. Trump represents the renter class. That's true. Yeah. That is true. All of the leaders of this movement also are cowards. Mitch McConnell is a basic training fail out. Donald Trump is a draft dodging coward. George W. Bush was a draft dodging coward. His father was actually a war hero, so I'll give him that. Ronald Reagan basically dodged service in World War II to do movies.
Fun fact about Nancy Reagan, by the way.
She named names at HUAC.
She did, and he was very big. It's one of the reasons why he gained the political power he did was as head of the Screen Actors Guild. He helped them root out communists. But no, I was actually going to be far less incisive than you, and I was going to point out that she was known as like the freaking blowjob queen of Los Angeles, like before she was a political figure.
Having lived in Southern California, that is an extreme achievement. Like good on you, Nance.
Yeah. So, by the way, I want to go through these from WizBiz. I always love your contributions, Wiz. The woman who was shot and the man in Pelosi's office were outspoken QAnon theorists. The man in Pelosi's office was a fascist, unless you were talking about the...
the two go hand in hand, so...
Yeah, but the Q shaman was QAnon, and I don't know if he was in Pelosi's office, but it was Baked Alaska that I saw in her office, and Nick Fuentes, both out Nazis call themselves Nazis. Friggin' Baked Alaska was at Unite the Right, which we were just talking about. We also have here, boom, if you took the capitalism and added chaos and turned it into a human, it'd be Trump. Oh, did I say human? Yeah.
We were talking about Jordan Peterson on the last stream. I wonder if he makes his bed.
Yeah. I saw actually there was a meme that somebody had, which was like it was my friend Caleb. He said like it's a good thing Jordan Peterson told the Q shaman to make his bed.
Yeah, for real. And like a part of, I think, fixing this problem is going to have to be fixing the way we educate people, because right now we have a very industrial education process where we take person A put them through process B to theoretically add capability C, but we don't. Woody Guthrie, my dad played drums for Arlo Guthrie for a long time. Cool guy.
Yeah. Woody Guthrie, yes, he did do a song about Trump's racist landlord. He also did an amazing song. We were just talking about the Spanish Civil War, where he did Red River Valley, but as Jarama Valley. And that's one of the few songs I know how to play on my banjo.
Of course, you have a banjo.
Oh yeah, I'm a terrible hippie.
But we have to fix the way we educate people. We have to educate people who are thinking people now. And we just had Betsy DeVos, who was a side effect of having this fascist regime for the last 4 years, who wants to basically capitalize everything.
She's the sister, by the way, she's the sister of the freaking Blackwater guy, Eric Prince, who wants to set up a new Raj, essentially. Like he wants Blackwater to be to like Afghanistan with what like the he basically wants to be the new British East India Company. Yeah. Like it's horrifying. By the way, we had this here from WizBiz. I had been reading about concealed carry protesters and trucks carrying weapons and Molotov cocktails. Yeah, and they found a bunch of IEDs afterwards. Yeah. I don't know if they were good IEDs because you remember the MAGA bomber. So what were you going to say there, Bobby?
Well, it was at least 2 IEDs, but like the princes are a product of the neoliberal capitalism that we've done too, because they made their money by exporting jobs in an auto parts factory overseas, and they ruined a town in Michigan to make their fortune. This whole movement is a parasitic movement that feeds on the destruction of the American economy, concentrates wealth in a small class, and imposes its will on the people through a capitalized culture industry and through direct police violence, which we've seen. And then when they break the law, we see that same police machine doesn't function the same way, partially because of political reasons, such as racism, because, obviously if that was not a crowd of white people, that would have ended very differently, but also partially because the left in this country, going back to what I was saying earlier, has coddled the right-wing movement, because maybe we are gun shy because of Waco and Ruby Ridge, but we can't afford that anymore.
It's not just that. I agree that we can't afford it anymore. The Democrats are spineless, and they have always been spineless. They think that
in our lifetimes.
In our lifetime, they're spineless. But like the thing that I always like have pointed to recently, at least, was you had that freaking guy from West Virginia, and this was in November. Granted, it was before the thing, but what the hell's his name? I can't think of the name right now, but the senator from West Virginia went on Fox News.
Richard Ojeda?
No, not him. The Democratic senator.
Oh, okay. Oh, Manchin.
Joe Manchin. He went on Fox News and said if the Democrats take all 3 branches, he's going to block like all progressive reforms. He's going to block. He specifically talked about blocking court packing and blocking what is it? But like even when the Democrats are winning, they fall over themselves to try and appeal to the Republicans. How reasonable and accommodating they can be to these people. And I cannot tell you enough as a former right winger, you will never ever get their respect that way. You cannot get the right wing to go with you by being moderate. You have to be as crazy as they are and hit them as hard as they hit you, and then they will respect you. Now, I'm not saying we need a QAnon on the right, but what I am saying is that we need we need to see the radical left fighting as hard as the radical right.
And when we do that, we win, because
Yeah.
when we fight on the left, we get Social Security, we get Medicare, we get desegregation, we get the New Deal, we get the highway system, we get all of these things. When the right fights, they get tax cuts for the rich, they get offshoring jobs, they get brutal neoliberal capitalism, they get cuts to the social safety net, they get de facto segregation. Nixon famously ran on ending the busing.
They get another big thing. They get kids in cages.
Kids in cages, yeah. I mean, like the Holocaust Museum in DC, which is a very sombering place to go, but I highly encourage anyone who's in DC to make that a stop. Came out and said that those were concentration camps, which they are essentially.
Yeah.
And
no, they definitely are concentration
camps. That was what, one news cycle. And then we went back to pretending that the right wing has a point. We can't pretend that they have a point anymore, because they don't. They have no values.
Yeah, but it's very important. I can even say this as someone who has been in fights before, both physically and but also like in competition with like full contact karate matches. There's something, all of us are afraid when you go into any kind of serious confrontation. There is always a fear in the back of your mind. What if I can't do this? What if I lose? What if, and that fear is in every single one of the Democrats' hearts, except for maybe like AOC. Also, I like that Ringo-Award was immediately drawing up
articles of impeachment.
Yeah, articles of impeachment. The fear is not in Bernie's heart. I'll tell you that. But everyone does have that little bit of fear that what if I'm wrong? What if I'm not good enough to beat this person? What if I'm not? And that is the fatal thing that will guarantee you will lose, and you will lose poorly as opposed to losing well. That's the fear that's in Chuck Schumer. That's the fear that's in Nancy Pelosi. That's the fear that is in all of the major elite big players in the Democratic Party. They are simply cowards, and they will not confront reality, and they will not confront this opposing force. These are not friends. The Republicans are not your friends, not the ones in power. I mean, the Democrats aren't your friends either, but between the two of them, the Democrats seem to think that if they can be accommodating enough, if they can be moderate enough, if they can make enough concessions, then they'll be respected, and the people will come together, and everyone will, live in this horrible neoliberal like end of
history
end of history thing, which is just utter bullcrap. But no, you fight them as hard as they fight you, and then out of that you're going to get a society where good ideas actually take off. But these people have to be defeated.
I saw a comment just now that said turn the fear into indignation, which is great advice actually, but also there is a way to take advantage of that fear, because they're as afraid of their voters as they are as afraid of the Republicans. If we can be an electrified, active base and not go to sleep like we did in 2008, we can make them more afraid of us than they are afraid of the Republicans. That's how the working people of this country got the New Deal. Famously, FDR saw Camp Mafia in New York, and he realized that they had to be more afraid of the working people organizing than they were of losing elections to the right wing. And that's how we got the New Deal. We had to be an electrified, energized population to get rid of segregation. We had to be an electrified, active, street fighting base to get any sort of reform in this country. And you know what? We have our triumphs over the last 100 years. If you go back, Noam Chomsky said this, and I thought it was brilliant. If you go back 100 years, we didn't have any Medicare, we didn't have any Social Security or anything. But we fought for those things and we got them. But if we don't fight, if we don't draw lines in the sand where the failed right can't cross, we're going to lose. And we've been losing for the past 40 years. We've been losing for my whole life. I'm in my 30s. But we can't afford to coddle the right wing anymore. We can't afford to do what you're talking about and pretend like we can be civil with these people. We can't afford to pretend like they have good ideas. We can't afford to let them get away with literal crimes. We have to step up as a people. And right now, if you're listening to this and you're in America, you have a congressperson. You need to, I hate to be cliche, but you need to write to these people. You need to call these people. You need to organize in their districts, and you need to make them more afraid of losing their seats and losing their status than they are afraid of the Republicans being mean to them. You need to show them that the failed right-wing propaganda machine does not work on everybody, that it's a small portion of the population, we need to vote out Republicans at every single level of government. We need to start at the dog catcher, if there is an elected dog catcher left in this country. I don't think that's a thing anymore. Yeah. But we need to start the dog catcher, and you need to move all the way up.
No, dog catcher is still a thing in the United States.
Is it really? I don't. We don't have one where I live.
So I lived in like nowhere, Kentucky.
Yeah.
For like 7 years, I think. And we had a dog pound and an official dog catcher. And if I recall with it, that was one of the two things our town made national news for. One was for the deplorable conditions of the actual dog pound. It was described by people in the town as a dog Auschwitz. And two, the other thing was that my art teacher in high school, she wanted to, God came to her in a dream and spoke to her and told her that in order to enter the public school, to enter the hearts and minds of the students, she had to form a committee to review and ban books from the public library.
Oh God!
Like those were the two times we made national news.
I'm so sorry, but you have to start at that level, and we have to move all the way up. And it's not just the Republicans. We have to do a systemic. I don't want to use the P word, but we have to do a systemic reorganization of the Democratic Party. You can get involved in your local Democratic Party even if you don't share the Democrats' ideals right now. You can vote these neoliberals like Pelosi and Schumer out of the party. Joe Manchin, that we were talking about a minute ago, has no place in the Democratic Party whatsoever, but he stays there because he has institutional power within the party. And that institutional power ultimately is based on the people who vote in primaries, people who are like district captains. We need to go from the bottom up, and you can start this in your local town, and we need to make it a national movement to completely excise this failed right-wing movement, this failed neoliberalism, and this coddling ideology towards literal terrorism out of our country completely. We need to excise it completely from our country.
And what we also need direct action. And when I say direct action, I don't mean go and get into fights with these people. I don't think that's a good idea.
It's a very bad idea.
Yeah, because these people are insane and want to kill somebody.
Yeah.
What I'm saying though is get into the streets. Like if you are someone who's already had COVID, or once you have the COVID vaccine, go like don't risk it. Even if you think you're young, as far as like with regard to COVID, I have a cousin, she's younger than me, and she got COVID and her hair is literally falling out. Jesus. Like, no, we don't know what the hell this thing does. So be careful there. That's the one reason why I'm not telling everybody to get into the streets. But as soon as you're able to get into the streets, get into the streets. That changes things. Also, letters, calls. You can bully these people into actually doing something. I personally was able to bully Chuck Schumer, along with a number of other people, into actually bending and then breaking on SOPA and PIPA. It can be done. You literally just have to you just have to do what the NRA does and keep bugging them. There's very few people in the NRA, but the NRA, like, they're really good at sending letters and calling and making it seem like everybody agrees with them. The other thing that I will mention, if you are interested in getting involved with party politics or with politics in general, check out Rico Rants. He's a great example on this. He just had me on his channel, but he is involved in his DSA and he's involved in his local Democratic Party. This is really important. I hate the Democrats, but when you've got only two choices, do what you can. Because again, we're at a very, very dangerous tipping point. And I got to tell you, if the fascists win, it's not going to bring the revolution. We already talked in the last thing about why you never go full accelerationist. It doesn't work.
It doesn't. And there's this apathy that we've developed in our culture in my lifetime. I kind of refer to it as like the cool South Park apathy, where it's like nothing really matters. Everything's the same. It's not the same. No. Democratic presidents are very imperfect and very flawed, and I take a lot of umbrage with them from the left. But just in my lifetime, I've had I lived at the end of Reagan. I don't remember it because I was basically a potato, and then
Me too.
Then Bush and Clinton years are what I really remember. I've had Clinton, I've had W. Bush, I've had Obama, and I've had Trump that I really clearly remember. And you cannot tell me that any of those two Democrats are not preferable to any of those Republicans. And if we want to move the Democrats left, we have to do what we've been talking about, like you're saying, direct action, getting involved in party politics from the ground up. We need to cut this ideology out, because on the Democratic side, we have this coddling neoliberalism that will essentially bend and fold to fascism, and we saw that over the last 4 years. On the right, we have a literal fascist movement, and we can't afford either of them. But we especially can't afford what's coming from the failed right now. We cannot afford to have a huge swath of the population that thinks it's okay to storm Congress to try to impose an unelected strongman into the office of the presidency of the United States, which is essentially the most powerful office on the planet. We cannot afford that. Yeah, I saw in the comments. Yes, neocons are significantly worse than neolibs.
Yeah, they are. Ooh. So what I'm going to pull us back to for this, because we're at almost an hour here, and I think we've said all we're going. Well, I could go on for quite a while, but I think we've covered the major themes here. Turn the fear into indignation. If we fight, we may lose. If we don't fight, we've already lost. This is very, very true. And again, I don't mean literally fight, unless you want to set up a boxing match between myself and Rudy Giuliani or Donald Trump. I would love to do that.
I'll be your corner man.
Oh my God, I would love just to land a few low kicks on Rudy Giuliani.
You'd only need the one, I think.
Or pretty much just one. I don't know. Rudy, he's a little smaller, so he might take 2 or 3 like Trump. In one low kick, I guarantee you Trump would buckle, and his knees would break like a freaking lollipop.
It's probably one of the only things he eats today.
Yeah. Oof. The thing is that, and again, what I'm saying this, and by the way, for anybody in Minecraft, I'm joking here. Yeah, just as if there's some freaking weirdo out there trying to take this in the wrong direction. But my point being is that the answer to this is for people to get involved, is for people to oppose these people. And the answer is to make sure that people demand that there are consequences. One of the things that I remember from the Cecily McMillan trial was they wanted to sentence Cecily to like 7 years in prison for accidentally elbowing an NYPD police officer, who, by the way, later on was dismissed from the force, like because of police misconduct. This guy was not a good guy. One of the things that happened was that there was an unprecedented letter writing campaign. There were so many people who had heard about Cecily and wanted to make sure that she did not suffer consequences for what happened, that they were forced to only put her in jail for like 90 days when they wanted it to be 7 years. And the judge even said he was really angry that the prosecutors had only asked for 90 days. And the only reason they did that was because people got involved and made their will known. One of the things that I will be thankful to the 2016 election and to Donald Trump for, actually, was proving twice now that the American voter still actually does have control over this country in a way. Because there is no way that the cabal would have picked Donald J. Trump to run things in 2016. And there is also no way that if Trump actually had the power to completely overwhelm Democratic control and that we only had a fake version of democracy, there is no way this would have happened. We do still have control over our society. It is not the kind of control that we need. It's been weakened and stolen from us mostly, but it is still there. And we can still fight and we can still avoid what is coming. But it's only going to happen if we do actually follow through if we do actually follow through, and if we do take a direct hand in the running of our own communities. And that means getting in the streets to oppose fascists. That means getting in the streets when COVID is over to make sure that politicians do what we need to do, what we need them to do. That means putting pressure on these people and making sure that they actually do come down and that there are legal consequences for these people, for this freaking Q shaman, for the rest, for the fascists. Nick Fuentes, what's the other one? Baked Alaska. These people need to face consequences for what they've done. And I think Robert can and I can both concur on that. So Absolutely. Make sure that happens, again, legally, and do it through the levers of power that we actually have. Because it's another thing is that it has to be done right. If it's not done right, it's only going to provoke that kind of tactic from the right wing. Because again, these people are not going to go down easily. So anyway, that's been our stream. I cannot freaking believe that Trump tried. He kind of tried like a soft coup. Then he tried to do a hard coup and failed. And then he tried to do an idiot coup.
He tried a beer hall putsch, essentially, is what he tried.
Yeah. And you know, honestly, I'm glad it didn't work, but it worked way better than it should have.
Much better than it should have. It never should have gotten to this point. And I don't want to put anything on anybody, but we've allowed it to get here. And we've seen what happens when we've allowed it to get here. We have to stop. We have to make the political choice to stop allowing it to be here.
Mm-hmm. Here we go. We got this one from Dad Bod. I love that this is coming from this image.
Yes.
Trump going to be impeached. The meat and potatoes of the issue is resolved. His orange jumpsuit would be a great match for his skin. I agree. Yeah, I would like to see him impeached. I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but like I said, Ilhan Omar is filing the papers for it, and he does. It was a Karen coup.
It literally was. There were literally Karens screaming that they needed more men to storm the Capitol, which is a pathetic commentary on where we are as a society at this point.
Yeah. Let's see. Perfect match for his impending jumpsuit. Twitter 12-hour ban is a great virtual jail practice for what's coming. You cannot stand the garbage hand.
Well, Foucault would say Twitter is a prison.
Yeah. Twitter certainly feels like prison. Pro-social pessimist. Then he tried to denounce at the last minute when it was already too late.
Because he's a coward. He's a coward, essentially. These fascists are all cowards.
Again, this isn't what's really important. Trump seemed unbeatable for the longest time. There's a reason why the Republicans abandoned him after he lost the election. And that's because there was blood in the water. It was proved that he was not as popular as they thought he was. He was more popular than he should have been, but still did not have the power that they thought he had. And so they started breaking. And now he's getting crazier and crazier, and he's still trying to act like he was that powerful. Because again, he over and over during his administration, as people tried to take him down legally for all of the incredible crimes that he was constantly committing and getting away with it. He never gets to the end of it and says like, oh, wow, that was close. I better never do that again. No, because this works. So again, this Karen coup, this attempted beer hall push, I'm calling it Karen coup from now on.
That has to be a thing. That has to be a thing now.
Yeah, that is, that's hopefully going to be the end of it. But it will only be the end of it if there are real consequences. Again, you defeat a bully by bloodying their nose. And I'm speaking metaphorically, of course, unless you are in elementary school or middle school or high school and then bloody their nose. Trust me, your permanent record's not a thing.
Look up what Malcolm X said about self-defense, and that's my position.
Yeah. I was, it's funny. If I could go back and redo my high school years, if you've ever thought about that, I think I would.
I think everyone thinks about that.
Yeah. I think I'd have more sex and I would get into more fights.
Well, I boxed throughout my high school years, and I actually got to quote Fight Club at somebody in school because I would come to school bruised a lot because I was boxing, and this girl would always look at me funny, and I finally wound up saying like, yes, these are bruises from fighting. Yes, I am okay with that. I am enlightened. And I actually wound up dating her, so it works. But,
so I don't know, Bobby, before we're going to be heading out of here, there is one thing. There's a civil war in the GOP. This division is our best advantage for a long time. I do agree with this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Crush them. Go Cobra Kai. Strike hard, strike fast, no mercy.
Speaking of which, by the way, I will be going,
Oh, sorry. I was thinking about the same thing because I'd love to talk to Cobra Kai with you because I'm a boxer, which is like, no offense, more of like a combat sport than karate is, and you're a karate dude, so you'd have some valuable perspective.
I will wreck you, but
challenge accepted. Ding ding.
Kyokushin, remember, Kyokushin trains for bare knuckle.
No, yeah, Kyokushin I respect, but like YMCA karate not as much.
YMCA, the Miyagi Do, and not that's not a real fighting sport. I think we should, I'm a little ways into season 3. Yeah. So when I finish season 3, why don't you and I get together and we will talk about Cobra Kai?
Absolutely. Preview. I think Johnny is right about fighting. I think Daniel's right about life.
Yeah, I will agree with it. Preview on my end, the fighting that they do on the show, they do occasionally do real karate katas that I recognize. Yeah. The fighting they do on the show is not karate, not at all.
Well, it suffers from that thing that a lot of martial arts things do, where people shrug off things that would hurt for like 6 months.
Dadbot is asking, is Cobra Kai any good? Yes.
Yeah,
Cobra Kai is good. Yeah,
extremely good.
It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of drama. It's essentially a farce. By the way, from a dramatic standpoint, a lot of the problems could be solved by characters just sitting down and having a conversation with each other. But it's worth watching. The combat is good, but it's not realistic at all. Yeah. I will say the weirdest thing about the series is Daniel is the biggest, like Danny LaRusso, the Karate Kid. In this series, he is the biggest freaking narcissist that I have ever seen, and I can't tell if the writers know it or not.
I think they do. I think they really do. But that's a preview.
Yeah, but so we'll talk a lot about the series, and I'll also come at it not just from martial artist point of view, but from a professional writer point of view. So definitely check that out when we do, and I like talking with Bobby anyway. All right, Bobby, where can people find you?
I am Mustache Mafia on YouTube. I'm Mustache Mafia on SoundCloud. I am Mustache Bob 2 on Twitter. If you are Mustache Bob 1, reach out to me because I want to know who you are. You have great taste. Thanks everybody for listening, and I will see you next time.
Absolutely. And this is Brent of Insurrection with Brent and Lengel signing off.